All right, guys, we're on 6-2, and we're going to go ahead and dive right on into our worksheet for today. All right, that's all you're going to have is to complete this video lesson and worksheet. So pause as you need to, go back, rewind, go ahead. All right, so first things first, you're going to start off with your warm-up and say, who do you think is the most influential computer developers? There are a couple pictures of a few guys here, but pause, take a second, and write out just a guess who you think the most influential computer developer is. Okay, now that you've done that, just to kind of mention, up here in the top, if I point, I guess that way, you have Bill Gates, then you have Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. We'll talk about a couple of these guys today. All right, so let's go ahead and get jumped in with some of the timeline stuff here. So we're going to start talking with Charles Babbage. This guy created originally the difference engine. Believe it or not, this contraption here was kind of like your original calculator. All right, those gears and wheels would work together so that you could kind of have stuff that, well, as it rotated, you could put one thing in, pop it out, and there you go, based off how you had the gears. Now, moving on to the part that really matters, this is what he created. And you can see the analytical engine, there's a picture there, was also created by Charles Babbage. And this is what was known as the forerunner of the first digital computer. This is because if you've paid attention, what you need to be considered a computer, you got to have input, processing, storage, and output. So what you see here on the screen, these little paper like cardboard things with the holes punched, those would go in. That's your input. Now, based on how those holes lined up, this, as you crank this wheel, would process what was there, kind of using the stored information, create output. So it went through all those things, and that's why it is considered the forerunner to the first digital computer. Okay. Now, the father of the computer, even though that was created by Charles Babbage, the difference in the analytical engine there, what you really see as known as the father of the computer is this man right here, Dr. John V. Attensaw. All right, he is the first to build. He builds the first digital computer with his partner Clifford Berry in 1937. So who is known as the father of the computer? Dr. John V. Attensaw. And what did he create? He created the ABC. That is because it was known as the Attensaw-Berry computer. This is a picture of the ABC, and you can see here it's actual, you see electrical wires in it. You actually are seeing a difference in those gears and wiring, and or a replacement for gears becoming more wiring here. So the ABC was originally created to solve linear problems and was able to do so up to 29 equations. So depending on how complicated it was, it could actually do it. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about a pioneer in coding. All right, Dr. Grace Hopper was different of her time because we're looking back quite a ways where women were not held generally at the same level. And so she was definitely a one of a kind, and she is really well known in the field of coding for all the different things she was able to do for that. All right. So who is Dr. Grace Hopper? She is an early pioneer in the field of coding. Dr. Ted Hoff. All right, so this is Dr. Ted Hoff. He develops the microprocessor. Now, if you look here, you recognize that blocky eye. You may think, I've seen that before. Well, that is because he worked for Intel. All right, and Dr. Ted Hoff creates the i4004 microprocessor. So what is the name of the processor he created? The i4004. Now, this was created kind of on accident. He was working for a company at the time, creating calculators, and it just kind of so happened, stumbled upon creating this while trying to make a calculator that was more compact and functioned at a higher level. And this blew up and made Intel really what they are today, ahead of the game. Now, moving on in line, we have Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Now, you've probably heard of Steve Jobs, maybe not his business partner Wozniak there, but they are who create the first, or they create Apple. They create the Apple computer. And this is actually what becomes the first computer that many people come in contact. Now, there are many computers before the Apple computer. However, this was the first one that was compact, very small, and was available to the public to get into homes. All right, now Bill Gates, many remember this or know or have heard this name as the richest man up there with Jeff Bezos. But what Bill Gates is really known for is for the creation of Microsoft and being a software genius. He even drops out of college to create Microsoft along with other couple software companies, and has done very well. Okay, continuing on, we've got binary. We talked about this yesterday. Binary is simply a number system composing of two numbers. When we're talking about computing, that is generally ones and zeros. That correlates with transistors for opening and close, sending those electrical symbols. All you need to know for binary is that it is a number system of two numbers, generally ones and zeros. Now, I'm going to give you guys a second. This is kind of an example of what it would look like and how our idea of measurements, memory units kind of correlate. But I want you guys to take a second and work on the binary assignments on your worksheet. So for the first thing, you're going to find the binary code that equals 100 and type that answer on your worksheet. And then you are going to also take and create, using the binary code there, create your first initial for your name and add that screenshot there. Okay, pause me, go do that, and come back and finish the worksheet. All right, so now that that's done, we're going to talk about updates. Is it good to update your computers? Often softwares do offer updates to fix bugs. So what is a bug? First of all, a bug is an error in coding. So if there's a glitch in there, generally your updates will fix that. Bug, error in code, and often updates do offer a fix for a bug. So that would be true. Now, we're going to talk about are automatic updates a good thing? Okay, so negative case of that. So in one case, a person was preparing their income tax and were unable to print their forms when their software company issued an automatic update 1 week before filing. If you don't know, that's a bad thing. So the automatic update disallowed him from being able to print off what he needed to file his taxes on time. Another situation, I'm going to summarize this one, with computers. An automatic update went on there and made it to where this update wouldn't happen, even though it was disabled. The new update put it where you could not update any longer. So the new update said, nope, no more future updates after this one, and there were major glitches. So those are some errors to think about if updates are always a good thing. Okay, take a second and write down what your thoughts on that. Do you automatically update your phone, or do you wait till your buddies are done and say, yeah, we're good now to do it? Write down what you think, then come back. All right, so now that we're back, what is a network administrator? Well, that one's pretty easy. This is just someone who simply oversees what is going on a network. Okay, a network is a group of interlinked computers, right? So in this case, everybody's Chromebook is on Anderson 3's network using the same server. So the network administrator, really simple, uses an administrator account to oversee everybody on a network. All right, now back into operating systems. Windows 10 is currently the most popular PC. Now this is a couple years old, all right. We do have newer stuff, but still I would venture to say Windows 10 is the most popular. When was it released? Windows 10, this is an example of what it looks like. What the home screen operating system, this is that user interface that you see when you get that. And it was originally released in 2015. When they brought it back, you can't see it down here in the bottom, but when they brought back Windows 10, different from Windows 8, they brought the start button back. Now these are the different elements of Windows 10 you can kind of see here. And three things that Windows 10 comes preloaded with. You have the recycle bin, always, the taskbar across the bottom there, as well as the start button. All right, previously when they didn't have the start button, this is kind of what it looked like when I was in college, but it caused a lot of issues, so they brought it back. Now, on a different operating system and user interface, you can watch, and you're going to go through and answer those three questions there by watching the video. Okay. Now that you've watched the video, you should understand that this across the bottom is the dock. All right, the little thing that looks like a rocket is the launch pad, and that's how you get to all your applications and see them all. And that natural scrolling is the reverse of normal scrolling. So the answer to that one would be true. Mac OS is, in fact, a Unix-based operating system. All right, now, if we're comparing the two, Mac OS and Windows, the dock on Mac is similar to what on Windows? That is simply the taskbar. The Finder feature to find different things on a Mac is similar to the search bar on Windows, and the launch pad, in addition to the Apple icon combined, would make up what would be the start button. All right, we're knocking it out. We're on our third page here. So many of the first programs created for computers were two things: device dependent and proprietary. Now, what does that mean? That's like French, right? Device dependent means it only would work. Those programs would only work on a certain computer, model, or program, right? It's like your Xbox doesn't work with PlayStation games, right? Device dependent, it only works for that certain device. Proprietary, meaning it's only meant to make you money, right? Proprietary software, or the creator's money. Now, looking at other key terms you need to know: backwards compatibility. So most of you probably still remember this. This is a GameCube and a Wii, or a Nintendo Wii. Backwards compatibility is when something new works with something old. So in this case, the Wii is newer than the GameCube controller, but it still works with it. So backwards compatibility is when something new works with something that is older than it. Upward compatibility would be referring to the GameCube controller here, something older working with something newer. Okay, that's upward compatibility. Okay, Raspberry Pi, this is just simple for you to know. This is a cheap single board computer, often used in schools and developing nations. That's all you need to know for Raspberry Pi. All right, Linux, 1991. We talked about the creation of Unix, but now we're talking about Linux. Linux is different than any other software or operating system we have talked about previously because it is open source, meaning it is open to everything. You can change it, it's modifiable. All of the other operating systems have been, what kind so far? They've been proprietary, right? They've been device dependent, or so it's important to know that. What are the benefits of open source software? The two advantages is that you can modify it to meet your needs, and generally it is free. Okay. All right, supercomputers use what kind of operating systems? Generally, they use Linux. Why? Because supercomputers generally, what they have is not just like, we're not using it for normal things. We're going to use supercomputers for certain types of research or modeling. So they have to have a operating system that is fit to their needs. Now, the potential downsides to open source software is that it is available to everyone. So if a hacker wants to get a hold of it, they can do that. But on the flip side, it's open to everyone. So if the best minds that want to go in and create great firewalls, they can do that very easily. All right, true or false? Linux systems run antivirus software. Generally, they do not come with that. So the answer to that is false. Generally, you have to kind of add or build that in yourself. Now, 3 ways to obtain Linux. You got 3 main things. You can go to linux.org and download it, right? And download that operating system. Generally, you're going to have to download to that USB drive and add it in later. You can also go and have it pre-installed. When you buy a computer, you can ask the person or the place you're buying your computer to add Linux as your operating system. And then lastly, you could purchase a disk bundle where it comes on it and then download it later. Who is the Chrome operating system created by? Well, obviously that is created by Google Chrome. And generally it comes with 3 main apps. Though I know your Chromebooks come with other things to begin with, it generally only comes with 3 main apps. To start with, it comes with the media player, the Chrome browser, and a file manager. That is the only 3 things that generally have to. However, if we remember our term from yesterday, bloatware, you generally do come with other, or it generally does come with other things as well. What are reasons to partition a hard drive? Well, it's hard to know the reasons if you don't know what that means. Partition is when you separate parts of a hard drive, the memory. All right. Now, why would you do this? Okay. Generally, people might. All right. So for partitioning, that's sectioning off sections of memory of a hard drive. So if I have a hard drive, I'm going to say, for example, I got a box here, got a hard drive in it. If I were to want to go in and partition this, I would kind of take half of it and say, this is only for this side. This is only for, let's say this is only for music. This is only for photos, right? Now you can actually physically do this and section it off. And this allows you to create what is called a virtual machine. So When I was in school here, we had Macs, and they were set up to be virtual machines. You could press one button, and it would pop up as a Mac operating system. You could cut it back off, press a different button, and it would pop up as a Windows computer. Now, why would you do this? Well, it allowed the computers to be used like normal for normal classwork for one class, or go in and use like GarageBand or other apps that are only specific to a Mac computer. Now, or Photoshop that generally works better with a Mac computer, any Adobe software like that. Now, that's why. Now, the downsides of that is you can't access. If I were to save it on the Windows side, I'm not going to be able to access it on the Mac side unless I download it to a different file that is compatible on both. All right, so that wraps up your worksheet for today. Make sure you have completed the binary assignments that were found on the worksheet and submit this worksheet by the end of class. And I will see you guys for tomorrow's assignment.